Hi, you're with Peter Carr and Scott Stewart on LTV's The Research Channel. We did a big study on trusted infrastructure or cloud providers earlier this year. There was a significant number of vendors on that Pulse market assessment. One of those was HP. At the time, HP were a little unprepared in terms of their presence and footprint and direction into the market. We undertook a desktop review of their services, and look, they still finished in the Pulse, and they finished in the top 30 of over 100 organisations that we looked at. So they're certainly a solid player at the time in the mix, but towards the back of the pack. 6 to 7 months is a long time. Continued to have discussions with them over that time, and there's some very interesting things happening regards HP and the cloud. So Scott, would you like to share some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember hearing a lot of or some market commentary about HP and that they didn't have a cloud strategy, and where were they? But I think all the time they definitely have been building it, and I think cloud computing is going to be a long race, right? So it wasn't a case of who could get to market in 6 months. It's actually who's going to stay for the long term.
But it was an important test at the time, wasn't it? Because there was still, so yes, we agree it's a long race and it's not about who's first to market, but it was important for us to do that study because there was so much hype and so much talk in the market, and nobody really understood who fit where. No,
that's correct. But I think the thing that I have picked up from HP is that they're very much attuned to the CIO. So they run a lot of CIO agenda workshops, cloud readiness sort of workshops, and that was good to hear, because in some cases when they're talking to this enterprise CIO, they're really finding out that really, you're not ready for the cloud. You have to get your house in order. They mentioned, some examples of the CIO who had like 17 Microsoft exchanges. And how do you move that to one instance of a multi-tenanted exchange? I mean, that's a big transformation.
Yeah, sure.
So I think that they were more thinking about the big picture. They were thinking about enterprise transformation, and potentially that could be linked to why they've taken some time to kind of, to come to market, or at least raise their awareness in the market.
Well, I mean, HP has also, it's been through a number of restructures over the last couple of years, and it's had its own challenges in the market. So, they've always been a company who's been very strong at bringing these sorts of things to market and using themselves as the perfect example of how they've done that. Yes. I remember, when we were going through the green ICT period and the data center consolidation period, they were their own, best case study for that sort of thing.
Yep, absolutely. And in this case, in their sort of go-to market offering that they have now, they've put a lot of thought into how that's structured. So they're very focused on service level agreements. They provide, 3 nines, 99.9 availability.
So is this them going direct, offering trusted cloud, or is this something else?
Predominantly, I think it's both. But predominantly they do talk to CIOs and do a lot with directly to CIOs on that kind of enterprise transformation. So they have this sort of enterprise cloud services compute model where basically enterprise CIOs can use their technologies to build their own private cloud, and it's infrastructure, it's trusted infrastructure as a service. Right. And they're starting with the things like Microsoft Exchange and the SharePoint and all those
as points of entry.
Basically, yes. Okay. Yeah. So let's deal with this with the 17 Microsoft Exchange and get it onto one instance.
Well, that's interesting in itself, isn't it? Because we've certainly seen the trend to move away from the desktop as being the corporate flagship sort of product. So yes, there's a need to consolidate those sorts of environments. So it makes sense from a point of entry. It's not necessarily the most sophisticated use of cloud computing that you would typically hear about in the market, but certainly it has very practical application.
Well, when we talk to CIOs in our annual studies, we're getting feedback and data that's saying that a big chunk of their ICT spend is around email. So I think email is one of those low-hanging fruit. It's getting more and more sort of spotlight, if you like, on how expensive it is. Yeah. And I think that predominantly the reason is some large enterprises have dedicated email teams, and as a result there's been email sprawl and there's been lots of Exchange instances. So it's an area of consolidation around costs and also time to market. Okay. But I think it highlights, doesn't it, really about cloud. and that is that really when you get into an enterprise and they go, okay, we want to move to the cloud, there's so much transformation. There's so much around project, around planning, around design, that really it's not going to take 3 months, right? It's going to take much longer.
So is that part of that readiness journey is something that HP Services gets involved in prior to those trusted infrastructure conversations taking place?
Yes, it's a very carefully considered approach. I was impressed because it was good to see that they were thinking it through, they were planning, and they were undertaking these CIO, agenda type workshops, and really listening to what the problems were and designing a solution, if you like, an entry point where the outcome was was more assured, through the planning. And
so, what about HP's also been one of these companies very strong in service management over the years? So, what is the cloud and ITSM story at HP? I imagine they're very important.
Yeah, it is very important. So I quiz them a lot about that. I'm very passionate about that service ITSM in the cloud, and it's very important, I think, and they certainly have a lot of it in their offering, and I think there's a lot more to come. So they have the service automation, which is around the provisioning and the monitoring, and as we know, they're very strong in that area. They have OpenView and a number of solutions, and I understand there could be some announcements coming, more announcements coming where there's much sort of more depth added to that ITSM space.
Right. So I guess when we come to look at this trusted infrastructure cloud market in Australia again, we expect some significant movement from HP this time.
Yes, I think so. They will be much more eager, if you like, to participate in our study, whereas last time they kind of really didn't feel that they were ready, right, which was admirable. So I think that this time around they're going to be in a much different position. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see them in the top 5 at least.
Oh, that's a big call. Okay, thanks Scott.
Okay.